Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Let me welcome you at the already fourth Alumni Live Seminar, what is a series of events where we invite inspiring alumni to network with students. As you may have noticed, our moderator, Eva Hromadková, is not here today. So today it's my pleasure to welcome our PhD alumna, Zuzana Fungáčová, who is a senior advisor at the Bank of Finland Institute for Emerging Economies in Helsinki. Zuzana graduated in 2009, and since 2007, she has been working at the Institute. She is also a board member of Slovak Economic Association, and she's one of our engaged alumni, keeping in touch with CERGE-EI, because she, for example, she participated in a mentoring program for women researchers we organized in 2017. So we are very proud to welcome her back at school today. Thank you for coming, and the stage is yours, and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Lenka, and thank you everybody for coming. I'm happy to be here. Actually, I was just talking with Katka. We were the same year at CERGE-EI, so when we were studying here, this was a computer lab, so we spent a lot of time here running stuff like that. So it's very nice to be back here, and I would like to tell you about my experience since I graduated, or even before I graduated, what I have been doing and what I have learned, and maybe what I would like to share with you, so that maybe to make your life easier than later. So this is actually the slides. This is the first time I'm using this background. We have the new ones. So just this is how the main building looks like in Helsinki. So I will start with a little bit of introduction about the institute where I'm working at, and then I will talk about what I'm doing, what I have been doing, what kind of research I have been doing, and my other activities, and then I will provide some details about my recent research as well. So as Lenka has mentioned, I'm working at the Bank of Finland Institute for Emerging Economies. It's called BOFIT. You see, it doesn't really match this BOFIT with the name, but this is the original title was different in Finnish, so that's why it started to be known as BOFIT, and everybody knows us as BOFIT. So now recently we have changed the name a little bit, but the BOFIT abbreviation is still there. So BOFIT is one of the units of the Monetary Policy and Research Department at the Bank of Finland. So the whole department is about 50 people, and we have 4 units, and one of them is forecasting, another one is monetary policy euro area unit that prepares the background for the monetary policy decisions. Then we have the research unit, which is a research unit in a traditional sense for central banks. And then we have BOFIT, which is very special unit in the central bank environment, I would say, because, well, we do both monitoring and research, and we focus on emerging markets. And actually, I realized that BOFIT was established in '91, so CERGE-EI and BOFIT are the same age, which is quite nice, I think. And how it came into being is that when there was a Soviet Union, then Finland had bilateral trade with Soviet Russia or Soviet Union, and there was a special department for bilateral trade payments, because there was a barter trade between Finland and Soviet Union, and they were taking care of the payments. But then in '99, when Soviet Union collapsed, then of course, there was no need more for this kind of department, but there were people who knew Soviet Union and Russia very well. So basically, and it was realized that Finland will still have this very long border with Russia, and we need to know something about Russia all the time. So there was BOFIT created as a unit that is supposed to monitor and also monitor the Russia and some other transition countries, and also do the academic research of these countries. And I write here that originally the focus was on transition economies, therefore the name was Institute for Economies in Transition. And so very originally these were Russia and the Baltic countries and Poland. But then when these countries, with the exception of Russia, of course, joined the European Union in 2004, we started to shift our focus to other emerging markets. And the most focus was put to China. And currently, the situation is that Russia and China are still there as our main focus, but we are also interested in other emerging markets, especially India, Ukraine, Turkey, and also some others. And well, these countries are not very boring. As you might imagine, there is always something happening. BOFIT is very, especially in the Finnish news, all the time. There are some of my colleagues explaining. I have noticed my colleague was today on the Finnish news in the morning because of the sanctions of Russia and so on. But what has happened now after the war has started, I think the importance, especially for Russia, has increased even more because there are not so many institutes around that are focusing on Russia and know about Russia. So now when you read even some articles about the Russian economy in Financial Times, many times some reference to BOFIT publication is there or what the people in BOFIT are saying. So there is a kind of a special role of BOFIT, which I really like when you imagine that the Bank of Finland is a very small central bank, and it's part of the European system of central banks, of course. And but these other banks, they don't devote so much resources to monitoring of emerging markets. So this unit is very special, and also when you think about how much of these resources are there, so there is no other central bank within this system that has more resources on monitoring and researching Russia or China. Even in ECB, they don't have so many people working predominantly on China or Russia as we have. But we are small. We are 12 people at BOFIT, but still, I mean, we have three and a half, as you counted, economists that focus totally on China, for example. So the focus is really big, and it's good for us because also as a small central bank, we can have influence even in Frankfurt. And we have something to say. So about me at BOFIT, actually I was first time at BOFIT in 2006. And that was during my PhD studies, and I was there within the visiting researcher program. I don't know if you are familiar that many central banks have visiting researchers program. They have different focus. Some of them focus only on senior researchers. Some of them take the PhD researchers as well. And I was lucky that I got there at that time. I was very happy to get there. And this was kind of my first encounter with BOFIT. I spent 4 times in Helsinki at that time working on my dissertation. And it was very useful. It was very useful for my dissertation, of course, but it was also very useful for establishing contacts and improving my networks. And then as it happened, when I was close to finish my PhD, I was thinking where to go. And then it was really a coincidence that there was a short vacancy at BOFIT. And I decided to take it even if it was originally, I think, only for 8 months. I was supposed to be a substitute, but I was like, okay, I know the environment is nice, I can learn more, and it's a good beginning, and I will see what happens. And yeah, what happened is that I'm still there from 2007, and now my position is a senior advisor. And what I'm doing is that, well, first of all, I do some of my own research, but also basically I'm responsible for coordinating research activities at BOFIT. And as you might remember, so my colleagues or people at BOFIT, they are doing both monitoring and research. And this is the trade-off that you have, basically, that if there is something happening and there is a lot of monitoring, then you don't have time for research. So That's why we also have, we are doing research not only using our resources, but we have this visiting researcher program that I was mentioning, and now I'm responsible for that. And I consider myself lucky in a way because there are not too many people who would, I mean, I have the experience of being a visiting researcher. I know how it feels when those people are coming to Helsinki. And now I'm trying to kind of help them organize everything, discuss the research with them, and so on. So we have the call for visitors twice a year, and we basically ask people to send us their background information, of course, but then the research proposal, what they would like to work on. And of course, we are focusing on the projects that deal with the emerging markets, but currently another focus of BOFIT is also monitoring global trends, geopolitical risks, and so on. So even these kind of topics are of interest for us. And mostly we are interested in empirical works, but of course, also like some background with the models is nice if it's connected to that. So I would encourage you to think about these kind of programs even before you finish your PhD, because this might give you, as you have seen in my case, some opportunities in the future. You would know the people. And there are other central banks having this I know. At least the Baltic countries, they have it, I think in Portugal as well. In Denmark, they have specific, I think, for PhD students. So it's really worth kind of checking these opportunities. You never know what happens then. Then what else I do? I'm responsible for BOFIT Discussion Paper Series. So this is very kind of traditional discussion paper series, but of course we have focus on our topics. That's why it's very valuable for some type of papers. And this series actually publishes the research of course, BOFIT members, but also of our visiting researchers. When you come as a visiting researcher to BOFIT, then one of the requirements is that your research is presented at the seminar and then published in our discussion paper series. And then, of course, I'm talking a lot, not only now, but also at BOFIT. I'm discussing a lot with visiting researchers, with other researchers at BOFIT or within the bank. I think it's a great way to kind of also move forward with your research when you are explaining it to others, then maybe you understand some things better. And then we organize a lot of workshops and conferences, so I'm involved in that. Maybe the most kind of regular one that we have is the workshop, banking workshop that we have. And we have it every year. We organize it together with the University of Strasbourg and the Fordham University, which is in New York. So we co-organize it, and it's a relatively small but very focused workshop that gives you the opportunity not only to present your research, but there is time to discuss it. We really take care to choose very good discussants, so that is very useful to come and talk about your research and talk to the people who have similar research interests. The next one will be now in August in Helsinki, and we have already chosen the papers, and this time the focus was surprise on emerging markets. But the first time, I have to say, we have really many good papers from India and on India, which is great. And of course, now China is very big as well. So, but this is what we are interested in, and it's also a good way. Because of course, BOFIT is also building its network. So one of the ways how we build the network is this visiting researcher program, of course, but also this kind of workshops and conferences, because the people who are coming, they got to know BOFIT, and then with some of them, we are in touch then also later on for other workshops and presentations and so on. And of course, we also have the seminar series. We have BOFIT seminars that are taking place on Tuesdays, and they are open to public. They are in hybrid form, so everybody is welcome to join. You can check on our webpage the seminars, and you just have to register, and then you receive the link to join the seminar. They are on Tuesdays at 10:30 Finnish time, meaning 9:30 your time. And lunch seminars are special seminars that we have. These are kind of brown bag seminars. We call it lunch because you can take your lunch with you there. Not just the sandwiches, real lunch. And it's basically for the internal purposes. So usually people from Bank of Finland from different units present their work there. And it's very useful to get the feedback also at the earlier stage of your research. Then more broadly, if I can summarize how is it to work for a central bank? Well, I've been there for a long time and I'm not planning to leave, so it's been very nice. We had now actually one guy retiring from Bank of Finland after 40 plus years, and his advice to the youngsters or us who work there, he was like, never leave this place. So I think it's quite nice. It depends what you want, of course, but in central banks, if you are working in this kind of research-oriented unit, then you have time to do research, but you are also to a certain extent involved in policy work. And what I like about this is, in comparison to maybe academia, is the fact that you are not you are connected to the real world. You know what's going on, you know what kind of questions we have to answer, and then you are doing it in your research. You are not just in your office at the university trying to think about something, what kind of research I can do to get it published. But you are connected to the real world, and this I like, because I like to see that when people are interested in our research, when people are using our research, and when it is useful also for policy work, of course. So that's why I would say working at the central bank is a nice option. Another advantage, of course, in comparison to university is that you don't need to write grants to get the financing, because you get it. And usually you have good opportunities to participate at the conferences and so on, but it's not always like that, because now I have heard that the budgets have been cut, so it's not always and everywhere, but in general, I would say. And then also what I mentioned here, that what I was using, you have the opportunities to go to maybe some other places for visit, to see how it works in the other central banks or similar institutions. So I've been as a visiting researcher in the Austrian Central Bank. Actually 2 times we have special arrangement with them because they are also interested in emerging markets, but actually when you look at the location of Austria, they are more interested in those emerging markets in Europe, like Central and Eastern Europe. So, but we have many common interests, so that's why we have this kind of exchange. And it's always good to see how everything works there and how it works in your bank and what we can improve and so on. Sometimes you are happy to come back, sometimes not, but you are always learning, which is nice, and also broadening your networks. And also I've been working at the ECB as a financial stability expert. So that's also a very nice experience. That's totally different environment, of course, because it's a huge, huge central bank, thousands of people, and yeah, that's totally different as our small central bank. But it's really worth doing. And this kind of job provides you with these kind of opportunities. You can go for unpaid leave for some time and then come back. Now, well, I don't know if you have questions at this point, you can ask, or anytime you can ask, but just interrupt me if you want to know more. Now, concerning my research, so broadly, what I'm working on is empirical banking, and the focus, of course, on emerging markets. But actually, in many papers or in many instances, I have maybe some papers that I've been working on emerging markets, and I know the methodology. So then I also using it. This knowledge to do research on, for example, euro area, because we have the data for that, or vice versa. So I think it's really good that you can kind of learn something and then use it for multiple papers. So very broadly, I put some areas to which I have been contributing with my research. So Actually, when I came to BOFIT, we had data on Russian banks, very detailed data on Russian banks coming from the Central Bank of Russia, but this was public data. It was nothing so special. The special thing was that you need to kind of organize the data to be able to use it, and this has been done together with some external people as well, but we had this data, and then we started to work on Russian banks, and it was, at that time, it was quite unique because nobody has, like outside Russia, was working on that. So basically what we were doing similar studies as have been done for the other banking systems, but for Russia. And this was new, even the Central Bank of Russia was interested in our work and so on, so that was useful. But then also the Russian case gave us opportunities to maybe study some things that cannot be studied with the data from other countries. Like, for example, we had papers when we were looking at risk-taking and financial stability. So the competition, if bank competition is good for financial stability or not. And there are different hypotheses about that. And financial stability can be measured with different measures. But for Russia, we were kind of lucky because we could measure it by the number of bank defaults. So in other countries, you don't have enough of bank defaults so that you can conduct this kind of analysis, but in Russia we could. And basically we saw that it contributes more to the competition contributes to more bank defaults. So that's this hypothesis where the competition contributes to more risk-taking of banks, and then the financial stability is worsening, and then there are more bank defaults. So this is one example, for example, of what we were doing. Then we were studying some kind of maybe more recent concepts like bank liquidity creation. This is the concept that has been introduced, I think, in 2009 by Berger and Baumann. And then also to calculate the bank liquidity creation, at least at the beginning, you needed very detailed data, balance sheet data from the banks. And it was not available for many countries, but we had it for Russia, so we could calculate it. So then the papers were on US and on Russia. And we have been doing work on that. We have several papers on bank liquidity creation. And currently, actually, there is this Oxford Handbook of Banking that is put together, and now there is a chapter on bank liquidity creation that we have been writing there. So it's quite nice because when you start to work on new topic, there are not so many people working on that. So then they notice your work. Also, for example, trust in banks is this kind of topic because the general trust has been studied a lot in the literature, like the determinants and so on. But specifically, trust in banks was not studied so much. But then we realized that in the World Value Survey, there is a variable, also the question about the trust in banks. So we just did a paper where we looked at the determinants of trust in banks, if they are different from general trust and why is it, and if for example, country characteristics also contribute to this. So that's a kind of paper that is cross-country and very general, but then people are citing you because there are no other papers on trust in banks. But afterwards, of course, they came, but it was quite nice. And then we continued this research on trust in banks, where we were asking the question if people have some experience of the financial crisis, if also in the future it influences their trust in banks, because there are some papers like Ulrike Malmendie who has these papers about the experience even in the childhood or in these impressionable years that influence your behavior also much later on. So we looked at the trust in banks and the experience of financial crisis. And we really found out that even when you experience a very strong financial crisis, even as a child, then your trust in banks even much later is lower. So these are, I think, quite interesting things, and that have also implications. And then, of course, working in the central banks, of course, we work on monetary policy transmission. That's kind of also very interesting, I think, especially in the current times when we had the negative rates. So we have a paper on on the negative rate transmission and if there is a reversal rate. And we really find in our recent research that evidence for the reversal rate in the euro area. And then the most recent thing is actually the topics on banking and politics. And this I'm very interested in, and it turned out that politics is now very important in the world, influencing not only banking, but other things as well. So I will provide you with more details on this, what we have done recently. But before I get to that, I want to also talk about my connection to the home country, Slovakia. And I don't have any affiliation there or anything, but I still try to be active. And we have in Slovakia Slovak Economic Association, which over the years, I think has improved a lot what the association is doing. And we have regular conference every year, either in Bratislava or in some other Slovak city. This year it will be in September in Bratislava. And the idea is to promote the economic research in Slovakia or by Slovaks, because there are many people like me who are Slovaks abroad coming to this conference, and also to give the floor to PhD students to present their research and to get feedback. So this is, if I can compare, for example, with the Finnish Economic Association, where I also participate at the meetings, the conferences that they have. Now I think the Slovak Economic Association meeting is also very kind of standard in this way. Of course, it's not focused on a certain topic. It has a broad range of topics, but there are over 100 people usually participating. So it's a good platform to present your research and to get the feedback, but also to kind of establish new contacts with people around. So I definitely recommend. The deadline for the submission is mid-June. So we encourage really also the PhD student to do this. And also I have been asked by, for example, by the University of Economics in Bratislava, where I did my master. They are trying to assess the quality of their research. So they needed like external evaluators for that. So I've been there. And also they have regularly the prize of the rector for the best research. So I'm in the committee doing this I've been already for several years. So now, again, till the end of June, I have to check what kind of new publications they had. And also the National Bank of Slovakia, they have this kind of prize of the governor. So for the best thesis, this concerns the master thesis and also the dissertation. So then if you have nice dissertation, you can also maybe apply for this. I don't remember what's the money that they give you, but it has been improved actually. So you can check those opportunities as well. I think it's very, at least for me, it's very important to also stay in touch with Slovakia and academics there and try to promote their work as well and maybe help the students as well. So this was I don't know how we are doing with time. We don't have so much time left. Because now I still have the example of the topics that I'm currently working on. And there are two papers I want to talk about very briefly. If you are interested, you can check them. They are both available. But this is, again, some topic that actually we started to be interested because of emerging markets. And actually, the literature that has been there about the banking and politics mostly concerned the emerging markets. And it has been shown that the state-owned banks in emerging markets, they are doing something before elections. So they increase their lending to kind of improve the chances for the re-election, because the politicians are kind of telling them to do so. And these are mostly state-owned banks. But then in this paper, we are looking at Russia. And well, for how we started, we were just thinking, okay, let's check when we have this very detailed data on Russia, where we have monthly data, meaning that we can really check what is happening 1 month, 2 months, 3 months before elections, not like yearly data that the people were using before. So let's just check if this is true. And then, yeah, we found out, okay, state-owned banks tend to lend more in Russia. Okay. But then what we found out is that it's not only state-owned banks in Russia, also the private banks are behaving this way. And this was kind of very interesting because it hasn't been shown in the literature before that the private banks would do this. And then we started to think about the hypothesis. So why this can be? Well, it's most probably now our answer is that Russia is not a democracy, it's electoral autocracy. And in this kind of regime, maybe the banks are behaving in a different way. So we had this monthly data, as I have mentioned, and the result is there. And why this is important is not only very interesting that those private banks are behaving in a similar way as state-owned banks, but it has consequences afterwards. Because, of course, if they provide more loans before the elections, they provide some loans that otherwise would not have been provided based on the economic fundamentals. And what it means that if you provide this kind of loans, later these loans will become not performing loans. And this we really saw in the paper because the loan quality has deteriorated afterwards and the amount of bad loans has increased, and then gradually also the profitability of banks. So it has implications there. But from the research perspective, it's very interesting that in electoral autocracies, what we are showing in this paper that is already published, what we are showing that in electoral autocracies, the authorities have the capacity and means to influence both lending of private and also state-owned banks. And it's not like, because people would be imagining that, of course, the authorities are calling to each bank, oh, now you have to provide more loans. But it's not totally like that because they don't have capacity to contact everybody. But in this kind of system like electoral autocracy, the banks, they can actually know what they are supposed to do, and they do it. Because what we see in Russia, that even the foreign banks, they behave this way. Because these are the foreign banks that have been there for some time, so they learned that if they want to be kind of safe in this kind of system, they have to behave the way the regime or the authorities are telling them. So it's very interesting. And of course, it would be very nice to check these kind of issues also for other similar systems, like, for example, in Turkey. There is some evidence about the state-owned banks, but not the private banks. So it might be interesting to check. Now, when I'm going to the other project that we have, and it's European banks and lending by European banks. So we are asking the questions: do elections affect the lending behavior of European banks? And then when we are thinking about these questions, there are two views. There is uncertainty view or manipulation view. And manipulation view is exactly what we see in Russia, that the regime tries to manipulate the elections by providing more loans before, manipulating us and provide some incentives for people, to vote for the party because they are doing well, they get more credit, and so on. And the uncertainty view tells us that there is uncertainty related to elections, and then what the banks are doing, how they are reacting to this. If there is uncertainty, they either provide less loans or they provide the price of loans is higher before elections. And we are testing these two views with European data. And this data set is actually quite nice because it has 19 European countries. Until now, these elections and lending papers, they were usually on one country only because you had nice data on one country. Here we have very nice data, and nice in the sense that we have monthly data. Again, the frequency is important because you can monitor what's happening right before, right after elections. But also here we have the data on the new loans. If you have ever worked with the bank level data, you know that you have total loans there. But then the new loan, sometimes you just have to take the difference, but it's not totally that. But here we have data totally like the variable new loans. And we also have the price of new loans. Even the price of loans, you don't have this data usually. You have to calculate the implicit interest rate and so on. But here we have the data on the price of new loans. And we have the different types of loans. So this is great data set, of course. And we have data from 19 countries for 10 years. So in this sample, we have 66 different elections. We only consider major elections in each country. Usually it's parliamentary, but sometimes presidential. And we are asking, we are looking what the banks are doing before elections. If they behave like banks in Russia, that they increase lending before elections, then it would be manipulation view. Or if they are decreasing lending, or if the increasing the price before elections, that would be the uncertainty view. And what we find is that the effect is especially for the prices of loans, and especially the prices of housing and corporate loans are increasing before elections. And it makes sense because more of these countries are democracies, and in democracies, there is uncertainty related to elections. In Russia, there is no uncertainty related to elections. You know the result. So this is in line with the uncertainty view. And when we are looking at the amounts, we only have significant results for housing loans. So meaning that the banks are providing less housing loans before elections, the amounts. But then when we control for higher uncertainty, we use Google Trends to measure the uncertainty around each elections. When we see that the uncertainty is higher, then also we find more significant results also for the amounts. So it's all in line with this uncertainty view. And I consider this kind of very interesting that even in democracies, there might be something happening before elections. And why this is important? This is important also, for example, from the point of view of monetary policy and monetary policy transmission. Because if the elections are happening at some time, the ECB can do something, but how it is transmitted, then that might be different in different countries. So this is actually very new paper. It's in our discussion paper series, but I'm happy that people have already noticed it also outside the bank. So yeah, we will submit it to some journal, hopefully also publish, but there might be politically connected banks. And I totally believe that something is happening in many countries. But if we can show it, it's because the problem here is that we can work only with this sample of all the countries, because otherwise we would not have enough elections and so on. So this is the first step. Maybe we will do something more on this, but this is where we are now. Yeah, I also like it. We were thinking about the types of banks that, like you have, I don't know, Česká sporitelna, which is basically Erste. So, like to see if the elections in the country,
other country.
Yeah. If it, but we were thinking also that okay, but maybe we don't have enough of cases for this, you know, because you need to have enough instances, because this type of things you have in these Central Eastern European countries, basically. So
Yeah,
it might not be enough to really work on that, but. Yeah, there are interesting things that can be done, and I really like this kind of research. That when you present it, then it always creates, you know, some questions. People are interested, and it has also policy implications. So this is what can you? Yeah, I can finish here.